Supro versus Fender round 2. This time, it's the heavyweight matchup. Hey everyone, welcome to this amp shootout between the Fender Supersonic 22 and the new Supro Royale. Now I want to give a little background to this video because this might not seem like the most likely matchup, considering my previous Fender versus Supro video was a much more likely matchup, which was the Supro Delta King 12 versus the Fender Blues Jr. And while those line up pretty well, these two might seem a little bit different, and they are a little bit different. Here's what happened. Now, to start, I do want to say this is kind of a sponsored demo by Supro. I have been doing sponsored reviews of the Supro Royale, which is an amp I've been using for a while and I really enjoy using. Now, the Fender is not associated with any sort of a sponsorship deal. However, I do also do sponsorship reviews with Fender. I love both amps. I love both amps, not only these two amps, but also just the companies in general. And if I had to use either Fender or Supro exclusively for the rest of my guitar playing career, I would be totally okay with it. They're both great amps. They're really in my wheelhouse and suit my tonal needs. So Supro happened to really enjoy my shootout between the Delta King and the Fender Blues Jr. And when we were talking about doing the Royale reviews, they said, hey, would you be up for doing another shootout with a Fender amp? And I said, sure. Here's the problem. The Royale doesn't exactly match up to a Fender amp offering the way that the Delta King does. It doesn't quite have that counterpart, you know, one kind of to the other. In fact, features-wise, the one that the Royale is probably closest to would be the Fender Blues Deluxe, possibly also the Blues Jr. However, the Royale is quite a bit more amp than either of those, and it's also at a higher price point. And I didn't think it would be a fair comparison for the Royale to just be punching down, so to speak. Now, in a similar price point, the closest amp to the Royale is the Fender Supersonic 22. They actually have many similar features. The one really distinct feature is that the Supersonic 22 is really a dedicated two-channel amplifier. It's got a clean channel and a drive channel. The Supro has a clean channel and then it has a foot switchable boost. Now, each have different modes. The Supersonic has a fat switch, and the Royale does the Class A at 35 watts versus Class AB at 50 watts. So in order to simplify this, and in order to make this a matchup that kind of fits, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it pretty straightforward and run them in similar ways. Luckily, I think they both sound great this way, and this is probably how I would use each amp. In fact, this is how I use the Royale, and if I were to own the Supersonic 22, which is on loan from my bass player Max.
This is Max. Say hi, Max. Hi, Max.
this is how I would run the Supersonic 22 as well. So what I've got is I've got the Supersonic 22 with the fat mode engaged, and you're going to hear it on a combination of the clean channel and some mild overdrive, kind of in the realm of what the Supro will do with its boost engaged. For the Supro, it's also the clean channel, and then using the boost pretty maxed out, because the boost doesn't really get it into like it's a channel switching amp territory. It kind of just gives it a nice boost. Now, what really struck me about doing this video with the two back-to-back is the results kind of surprised me. Now, the character didn't surprise me. The Supro is a little bit silkier, has a bit more of an even response and a bit more clarity. The Fender has more of that springy bounciness to it, like you would expect from a Fender. It's a rounder sound. It's not quite as even-keeled. What surprised me is that in comparison, while I think the Fender amp is brighter in a lot of ways, the Supro comes across as clearer. Now, when you talk about the drive channels, and again, this is where it gets a little bit hazy because, yeah, it's not exactly a 1-2 comparison, so bear with me, but it's true of a lot of Fender amps. The Fender drive in a lot of Fender channel switching amps, or even something like a Blues Junior, which has the boost, or the Blues Deluxe, which it has a second channel, but it's basically like having the boost. It's not really a crazy gainy channel. The overdrive sounds a little bit more like an overdrive pedal, kind of bordering into a distortion. With Supro, it does sound more like a boost, or if you really get it roaring, it almost sounds like you've got a fuzz going. So on the Fender side, you've got kind of that overdrive sound, and with the Supersonic, it would be almost like overdrive slash distortion. With the Supro, you've got almost like boost slash fuzz. I think of it in those terms because I'm a pedal head, so I like that kind of thing. Now again, features-wise, these are very, very similar. They each have foot-switchable effects loops, foot-switchable reverb. The boost on the Supro is foot-switchable, and of course both the fat switch and the channel switching are available with a 4-button foot switch for the Supersonic. The 4-button foot switch for the Supersonic is kind of a nice selling feature. Now, while all the features on the Supro are foot-switchable, there's an individual jack for each of the foot switches. Now, when we get into the clean comparison in a minute here, I am going to push the reverb a little bit more generously, and you will hear that the Supro has a very, very rich reverb. It's almost like it has an external reverb tank built right into it. It is a powerful, rich reverb. The Supersonic has more of a standard reverb. It's a Fender reverb, so it's still a great reverb, but it's much more of a standard, straightforward reverb. So we're going to hear it clean, then we're going to hear it on edge of breakup with the Stratocaster. I'm going to switch back to that Les Paul that I was playing, which has Mojo Tone Pickups in it. I actually don't know which ones. Can you believe that? Because we got it used. Live in suspense. With the Les Paul, we're going to do them more in a raucous kind of overdrive, and again, with the Supro, it's pretty well pushed. With the Fender, it's actually pulled back a little bit, but the overdrive levels are kind of in the similar realm, so you'll be able to compare the character of the amps based on these sorts of settings, even though the settings themselves are kind of different. And then at the end, I am going to hit them with pedals because both are known as pedal platforms. The Royale specifically, this is Supro's pedal platform amplifier. It's much more of a clean amplifier. And what I'm going to do is hit it with a new Wampler Moxie, which is a great new tube screamer. You'll hear it not only with an overdrive going into the front, but also a delay going into the effects loop. And for that, I am boosting the amps slightly overdriven, so I'm not just going into the clean channel. So let's get back to some tone here. Please let us know in the comments, what do you think of the character difference, not only of these two amps, but again, kind of on the broader spectrum of the Fender sound versus the Supro sound? Do you have an amp from either company? Of course, my guess would be more of you will have Fender amps because Fender amps have been around for much longer, whereas the Supro name was revived some years ago. They're making some great stuff, but Fender just has the much more longevity kind of to work with here. But let us know, what do you have? What have you used? What tones do you like? Did anything surprise you? Stick around for some more tone. I'm Jack Fossett. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.